County led to evacuations as high winds drove it toward homes on Saturday. Coming up, what helped ease the danger yesterday and the lessons firefighters say this early blaze is teaching.
More COVID-19 cases in Gallatin County. I'm Gabby Crevitt, and coming up, we'll talk to the health department and find out why we're seeing more cases.
Just about 6:30, we're back here on Montana this morning. Caitlin Corbett and Chet Lehman. It is Monday, and the weather forecast could be worse, I want to say, for today.
It could be worse. That's true.
Could be worse.
We started in
we're optimistic.
We started in the low 30s early this morning. It'll warm up a little bit more than that, and then we're going to just get it damp for you. Take a look out there right now. You can see clear skies. Part of the reason that it was so chilly this morning, and with temperatures in the low 30s in places. Frost on our cars when we came to work this morning. Still only 33 in Ennis, 37 in Dillon. A little breezy conditions out there makes it feel more like it's in the 20s. Your planner for today will warm up into the maybe low 70s, increasing clouds and some breezy conditions this afternoon. We're talking 20, maybe 30 miles an hour in some places. For the mining city, warming up into possibly the low 60s with those cloud cover and then breezy conditions as well. And those winds are bringing some moisture with it. We'll have that detailed forecast. Caitlin, coming up in about 10 minutes.
All right, thank you very much, Chet. All mandatory evacuation orders have been lifted for wildfire in Jefferson County, but some pre-evacuations are still in place. Officials say conditions yesterday made it much easier to get a handle on the fire, but MTN's Jonathan Ambarian reports leaders see this as an example of why it's important to plan as the wildfire season begins.
For about 4 or 5 hours Saturday afternoon, heavy winds were driving the Lump Gulch fire, causing it to spread quickly through heavy, dense vegetation and rough terrain.
Hellenans got their first taste of the 2020 fire season and began to light up 911 calls and be very concerned about where that fire was.
When the wind shifted direction, and later when rain came through the area, that rapid growth slowed. Firefighters say it didn't spread much overnight. Jefferson County authorities allowed residents in the Sheep Mountain area to return home, but asked everyone in the area of the fire to stay ready to evacuate if necessary. Conditions can still change rapidly, and Sheriff Leo Dutton says people still need to be watchful.
If it dries out with the wind blowing and no rain, we could be back in this situation.
Dutton says this fire should be a reminder for everyone to think about what they need to do if they have to evacuate. He recommends planning for things like bringing important papers, photos, and medication, and making arrangements if you have large animals.
This is the time to think about what's coming up this summer, take advantage of it, and if you have a plan, you won't panic.
In Helena, Jonathan Ambarian, MTN News.
The American Red Cross set up a shelter for those evacuated at the La Quinta in Helena. Leaders say about 14 people stayed there Saturday night, but all are now back home. And near Three Forks, multiple agencies called to respond to a wildland fire outside of Willow Creek on Saturday. That fire was located just south of the Rockin' the Rivers Country Jam venue. The cause of the fire is unknown, but according to the landowner, firefighters said it might have been caused by downed power lines. High winds were a concern for the responding agencies. Fire crews were concerned the fire could spread and cross Highway State 2. And in Helena, one person remains behind bars after a brief pursuit with law enforcement. Lewis and Clark Sheriff's Office says the high-speed chase happened last evening. A man who was driving the vehicle led deputies on a chase around 5 o'clock and fled to the Helena campground and RV park. Sheriff Leo Dutton tells MTN the man then left his vehicle, pointed a firearm at himself, and threatened suicide. The man then fled to a mobile home. After negotiations with deputies, 37-year-old Robert Fasuga gave himself up peacefully. And we finally reached a milestone when it comes to the number of confirmed coronavirus cases in Montana. According to the state health department, we are now at 601 confirmed cases. 72 of those are active. The latest cases include 5 in Custer County, 2 in Bighorn County, 2 in Ravalli County, and 1 case each in Cascade, Flathead, Lewis and Clark, Missoula, and Gallatin counties. 6 people are in the hospital right now, and 510 have recovered from the virus. 19 people have died so far. The number of COVID-19 cases has been on the rise lately, and a lot of people are wondering why. MTN's Gabby Crevitt takes a closer look at the reason.
More COVID-19 cases in Gallatin County is the last thing people want to hear. But Health Officer Matt Kelly explains why this is actually expected.
Well, I can tell you we are seeing more cases, and that's concerning. What we also know is that a lot of the cases that we're finding are connected to other cases.
Meaning the health department's contact tracing is working.
We're seeing some level of community transmission out there, but we're seeing the cases that we're getting tend to be connected to other people we know or have the disease.
A few months ago, COVID-19 tests were limited, and in many cases, people who were showing symptoms were not always tested.
We would identify somebody as a probable case because there was limited testing and we knew that they probably were going to end up being a case, and we would just treat them as a case. And so if you had an individual who was part of a nuclear family, and you had one or two other people in the family, you might choose in the early days of the pandemic not to test those kids, not to test those people in the household, and just treat them as cases.
And unlike before, now there's an option where you can be tested without an existing order from your provider. The Price Right Pharmacy in Bozeman began offering PCR testing earlier this month. I made an appointment and got my free test earlier this week.
There's antibody testing, there's antigen testing, there's all kinds of different testing. But that PCR testing is a really good way, is probably the best way we have to identify people who have active disease.
So more testing means we may be seeing more positives.
We're seeing a higher number of cases, although it's not totally unexpected. We're working really hard to limit the number of cases, and that's why we're seeing our case counts right now, is we're doing quite a bit of testing of contacts of individuals who are known cases.
In Gallatin County, Gabby Crevitt, MTN News.
And just so you know, Price Right Pharmacy's testing is independent from the Gallatin City County Health Department, but all positive cases are reported to Health Department officials. Last week, the Bozeman City Commission started talking about the future of Blackwood Grove's 120 acres of undeveloped land located east of South 19th and south of Alder Creek Drive. The commission approved the landowner's request to amend the growth policy in Bozeman's community plan. Now those owners can officially talk about annexing the land into the city and zoning the developer. Bridger Builders is requesting the land be zoned as a residential emphasis mixed-use district. Residents in that area are expressing concern about the future of commercial development that's permitted within that designation and worry about changing the existing neighborhood.
Residential emphasis mixed use is primarily a residential area. Although all of the Bozeman zoning districts allow some elements of commercial and institutional uses in them, it does tend towards the more broad permissions for those kinds of things.
And the zoning could include retail stores and restaurants. The commission will meet virtually tonight at 6 o'clock to talk about that issue and more, and we'll have an update for you later. In this month's edition of Awaiting Child, you'll get to meet Sean, who just had a 15th birthday. MTN's Jenny Fick shares his story.
This is Sean. In his free time, he sketches.
Go outside, play basketball, or play video games.
He really likes science, particularly chemistry, and figuring out how things work.
I like to make things or fix things.
He's not afraid of hard work and even has a few prospective career aspirations.
I was talking about carpentry, or also thought about logging.
He says he's getting better at skateboarding, but that he still avoids the hills. Sean enjoys reading and pretty much anything outside.
Athletic and artistic.
He shared the first thing he wanted to do when the sun popped out again.
Well, I actually kind of want to just go swimming again.
He loves animals, and he's got a pretty solid 3-point.
Or to going swimming and getting out more, or being able to go to home.
In Billings, Jenny Fick, MTN News.
And we wish all the best to you, Sean. 6:38 now. There's yet another scam to watch out for. This one comes in the form of a text message. Coming up, learn why you don't want to respond in any way at all.
Good morning. Ahead on CBS this morning, unrest in Atlanta. The latest on the fatal police shooting of a black man. Hear from his wife, who says the officers involved should be behind bars. Plus, 17-year-old Darnella Frazier's video of George Floyd's death helped spark a worldwide movement. First on CBS this morning, her attorney tells us how her world has been turned upside down. Also, we talked to acclaimed actress Rita Moreno, the institutional racism she has faced, and her perspective on the anti-racism protests. And contact tracing goes digital. Are Americans willing to share their data to help stop the spread of the coronavirus? All that coming up when we see you at 7.